To box at a high level, you must feint at a high level. There's really just no way around it. All elite fighters feint. It's the key to advanced pattern recognition, defensive exploits, setups, and clock control that separates the good from the great. And know this, before all of your favorite knockout punches, somebody got conned with a great feint, either moments before the punch landed or several rounds earlier. Feinting also makes basics better. Makes it possible to dominate the fight with a simple jab cross, as long as you disguise it with the proper movements. If your basics aren't serving you as well as they should in sparring, it might not be an issue of poor punch mechanics. The problem might be with your setup. There's a good chance you need a better read on your opponent and a more sophisticated feint. And that's what this video is all about. Today we're going to discuss some feinting fundamentals and highlight several different ways you can use feints to control your opponent, set up offense, and minimize the amount of punches you have to deal with. So let's start at the beginning with a look at some feinting fundamentals. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like these, made to order and controlled by your comments.
The first thing you have to understand, that feints work best against people who are nervous and uptight and jumpy. In my game, my first tactic really is to try to create nervousness in my opponent's defense. And you might ask, well, how in blazes do you do that? How can you make your opponent nervous? Well, my policy is to give them a smashingly fast, direct attack straight at their target, meant to land, in the very opening moment of the bout. And if I make it, fine. If I don't make it, fine. The idea is not necessarily to score on that attack, but it's to serve notice on my opponent that I'm crazy enough to try, you see. Now, if you do score in that initial attempt, that's all the better, because then they've got a sensitivity where that point hits, and they will be more prone to defend that spot. I think of every touch I put on somebody as kind of like I've burned them. And they'll remember that burn, and I'll come back, and then I'll feint at that sensitive spot and draw a response, you see.
So that's our first feinting fundamental, courtesy of fencing maestro Charles Selberg. The idea in his talk being, in order to make your feints more effective, you need to establish real threats, credible threats to your opponent. And one way to do that is by throwing hard punches at their defense, with no real intention to land. You throw that punch to be blocked, just to show your opponent you're throwing with bad intentions. And if they don't take these threats seriously and address them with blocks or other defensive commitments, there will be consequences. In this clip we see defensive great Nicolino Loesch absolutely dominating his opponent, completely controlling him in the ring with a series of relatively small feints. And the reason Loesch is able to get these huge commitments and overreactions from his seasoned opponent is that he's established his threat, either by forcing him to block his power punches or, as Selberg would say, burning him with clean shots. So here we see just that. Tyson Fury touches Otto Wallin's body with the jab twice. He's burned him with that shot. Here he goes a third time, doing no damage, but just burning him, just stinging him with those little touches. Now Wallin is biting a little harder on the head feints, and especially hard on the body jab. This allows Tyson to chain a committed power punch lead off of a small head feint. Again, Wallin bites on the head feint, and Fury can lead with the 3-2. At this point, it's important to make a quick distinction between soft and hard feints, and quite simply what that means is that there are at least two different feinting gears that you can shift into to accomplish different things in the ring. Soft feints are more about flowing and energy efficiency. When I'm moving through a series of different head slots in a relaxed, flowing fashion, or bouncing on my toes, or even moving through different guard positions, I'm giving my opponent a stream of soft feints. These probably won't freeze my opponent unless it's early in the fight or they're particularly jumpy, but they're not going to burn me out. In fact, they may help me stay relaxed by keeping loose and adding some movement to my stance, and they'll help me camouflage my true commitments so that I can hide real punches and real attack preparations in this stream of soft movement. Generally speaking, soft feints will not require a large commitment, and they should leave you in position to follow up with anything you like. In contrast to soft feints, we have hard feints, like this head feint from Fury. Hard feints require a bit more commitment. It's a sharper movement, like a quick drop or level change, a sharp slip to the inside or outside, maybe a quick shuffle step closer into range, or a sharp punch feint. The idea being you commit a little harder to these feints. You explode with them out of your smooth flow of soft feints in order to get this bigger reaction from your opponent, maybe even to freeze them so you can follow up with offense. This is an oversimplification, but try to think of soft feints as something you should be doing almost all of the time, whereas hard feints are something to do more consciously to draw a reaction from your opponent that you intend to follow up on. Whenever you're feinting, you must be prepared for return fire. After all, if you've done your job with the feint, you've convinced your opponent that you're committing to offense. And if you're fighting a counterpuncher, their first reaction is often going to be to send some fire back your way. So with that in mind, whenever you're feinting, you need to be defensively responsible. That means keeping your hands in good position, maintaining balance, keeping your eyes wide open, using head control, and maybe keeping a slip or head slot change ready to go in the chamber. That's enough theory for now. Let's talk application. The first way to use feints, in this case hard head feints, is to set up offense. Fury shows Wallin this head feint again and again, numbing him to the movement that Fury needs to initiate his jab. Another way the feint will set up offense is by controlling your opponent's defense. By feinting a specific punch, you control the target area that your opponent is choosing to defend in a given moment, which creates openings you can use to land clean shots elsewhere. Maestro Charles Selberg again tells us a bit more about that.
Feints at the target, like threatening the target with your weapon, are an excellent way to control the way your opponent parries if you use the feints right and at the right time.
Here Canelo uses a body jab feint to control Cotto's defense and set up a harder right hand. Canelo feints the body jab, and Cotto goes from this tall, high guard position into more of a forward-leaning posture. He was anticipating the body jab and looking to change levels to stuff it, but in coming forward with his weight and head, he added power to Canelo's cross. In this way, Canelo used the body jab feint to set up his offense at a high level. When you need to rest or just want fewer punches from your opponent to deal with, feinting lets you control the pace. Your opponent is looking to punch, creeping forward, maybe starting into their rhythm, but suddenly they have to deal with this potential threat. If they react to your feint, you've reset them and controlled the pace. And if they don't react to the feint, even better. Make a mental note and go back to that well a few rounds later. You might catch them coming in with something hard. This is great work from Fury. As Wallin tries to set up offense with some lead hand play, Fury pats the hand and feints the counter. Wallin sees the threat and resets. Using a mix of hard and soft feints, Fury draws Wallin's jab out. He's not intending to set up offense here. Quite the opposite. He's using the feints to poke the bear, so to speak, daring Wallin to punch back. And the longer Fury exerts this control over no man's land, the more pressure Wallin will feel to get the jab working and take back control. So Fury knows he has to shut Wallin's jab down, and to get him jabbing, he applies pressure with a stream of soft and hard feints. When Wallin jabs in response to a feint, Fury can easily defend it and discourage all of his setups, all of his offense, and convince him that the jab will not be working that night. If you haven't already, I highly recommend checking out our video on shutting down the jab, as feinting is a great tool to do so. Feints also make great covering fire. Here we see Fury use a series of soft feints, guard changes, hand position play, and head feinting to keep Walid reactive so he can change his position in the ring. When Walid looks to trap Fury in the corner, he jabs him off, and then behind a hard head feint, walks his way right down the ropes. Here again, Fury's in a bad position, but behind a series of feints, Fury walks left down the ropes and works back to the center of the ring, keeping Wallin reactive and thus unable to start his own offense the entire time. These types of cover fire feints are ideal for slow-footed fighters who want to hit and not get hit, as rather than having to dart away faster than your opponent can counter, your feint will buy time for a smooth step back. Feinting is also safer and easier than punching your way out of range, since it leaves fewer openings and requires less energy on the whole. Of course, your covering fire can also be used to reposition for follow-up offense. Instead of disengaging, just use that defensive beat to create a new attack angle.
You can make a person tired just fighting, huh?
Your presence there.
Oh man, what's your then you turn home when you get hit. That one move right there was like 4 big punches.